today we have had great applications of VR in different settings, and now we dive into childbirth education. No. Okay, so I am Marjaana. I do a PhD in Aalto University, which is in Finland in the Helsinki region. And this year I have been living in Silicon Valley, and it has been really interesting to network and see what's going on there. So much to see and experience, especially in the VR industry. My background is in engineering. I'm a usability engineer, so not programmer, but usability is close to my heart. And I have done my work mainly in the healthcare setting, so different kinds of healthcare work. And 2009, we moved to Colorado for 3 years, and I gave birth to my third child there. And it was, let's say, interesting experience. I thought it's easy to go from one developed country to another one to give birth, but the childbirth here is totally different. And there are good things and not so good things. So I would love to get the good thing from Finland and the best things from the US and combine them to get a really good childbirth service. So I was really impressed by the childbirth education I had here, even though it was my third. I was interested and I took a childbirth education, and I was like, whoa, now I really understand. Before I was told to do things, but as an engineer I want to understand why, and I got answers to those questions. Why do you need to be on all fours? Why do you need to be upright? Why? And then I heard about a doula, and I was like, whoa, I don't know if I'm going to speak English when I give birth, so I want to have a doula who knows about their local system, can guide us there, and whoa, what an experience it was. So I ended up actually coming to the US as an engineer, going back as a childbirth educator and a doula. And it was transforming my life at the time, and when I went home, I didn't go back to engineering, so I was 10 years childbirth educator, and I wanted to combine the knowledge I had from usability and engineering and online learning. So I started to develop childbirth education in online. It was Skype at the time. I had a lot of US customers who are delivering in Finland, and kind of I understood where they're coming from and where they're going to. So it was very interesting to be in that field. And later on, I studied to be a teacher, and I started doing e-learning even more. And now I'm an e-learning manager in a healthcare company as well. But today I will talk about my PhD topic. Oh, the other way. The usability is not good. I have noticed that other people do the same mistake. So the problem is that parents are not prepared for birth. They go into birth without really knowing what their body is doing, how they can support their body. They rely on the healthcare staff to tell them what to do, but when they do, they feel like they are dictating. So there's no win-win when the child, the midwife, which are usually in the birthing room in Finland, when they're telling them what to do. So the midwives would also like the parents to prepare so that they can be the guidance during the childbirth, but the person kind of knows what they're doing. And half of the parents do not prepare, and of the parents who do prepare, only 1/3 really gain their learning goals that they want to learn. So there is something broken in the childbirth education at the moment. We do have great programs, but they take time, dedication, and nowadays the parents, they are not up for it. They don't want a 5-week course where they are at the class for 4 hours at a time. They want it fast. They want to do it at home when they're commuting to work or something. And the consequence is that the stress levels are increasing, anxiety is increasing, we are seeing more interventions during birth just because of lack of knowledge. And we try to keep stress out of childbirth because it will prohibit the birth to progress as it should go. But all this unpreparing is adding the stress. So 2019, I wanted to study what is the current situation overall, not just in my bubble, who I'm training, but the whole Finland. And the parents wanted more flexibility. They wanted better accessibility to the information. Online information is not all that correct. There is a lot of misinformation as well. And they wanted realistic information. PowerPoints don't convey what it is to give birth. Even though you're taught on a PowerPoint, it doesn't really go into your system. And when you're giving birth, your thinking brain should go off. You should not be in your thinking brain. So whatever you have learned that stays in the thinking brain doesn't go into action when you're in labor. And parents' mental health crisis is here. It's real. And even in the US, they are really going forward trying to fix the mental health crisis. And it's so sad, like we are even talking about the deaths of mothers, fathers because of this issue. And if we support them during pregnancy, they have less stress, anxiety, they have better birth experience, then they feel better physically, mentally in postpartum. That will lead to better breastfeeding rates, better mental health, less postpartum depression. So it's not just the birth itself that we are trying to help, it's the whole, the families that are born at the same time. So from the user studies, we had user needs that then we figured out like, okay, what are we gonna do with that? What can fulfill the needs of the parents? So we had two solutions, flipped classroom or flipped learning and VR. So we developed 360 videos where we have a midwife and a birthing person. She was an actor, not really pregnant at the time. And we immerse the person into the birthing scene. And like we started when they are walking to the hospital, open the door, go to the triage, register, all these steps that they are kind of anxious, like, what should I do when I go to the hospital? So we give it to them visually, what they should do, how it's done. Then they go to the birthing room, take the fetal heartbeat, they move around, they're using different, well, in this pilot we have only non-medical pain relief, but it kind of gives the idea what birthing is about. And we also had the point that we want to let the people know how to communicate with the midwife. They are quite afraid sometimes that, okay, what will happen? How do I talk to them? How will they react to my wishes? So when they see this discussion like, okay, what do you want? How do you feel? What do we use next? That kind of eases the pain and stress that they have during their pregnancy. So we chose VR because it's flexible. We have it online and we had like multi-device. Our users unfortunately don't have VR headsets yet at home, so they used the VR headset with me, and then they were able to go home and use it on a phone or tablet, computer, whatever they had. It's on a website. So it's also very important for the retention, not only to have it in the VR headset with me or in a prenatal clinic or somewhere, but that they can go home and redo it. Quite often you take childbirth education maybe halfway pregnant, but you want to go back to the material when your due date is coming. So now they have the possibility to do it as many times as they wanted. So a little bit about the development. So we had the target group, we had their needs, and then we kind of needed to decide the knowledge level that they're having. So we actually made it quite low so that we don't expect them to know almost anything about childbirth. And that we were afraid that that will kind of bore people, but it was not the case. Then we designed the scripts that we filmed, and we filmed in the University Hospital in Turku. And so we had the pregnant person and the midwife there. And in the user studies we did later on, there was a strong hope that we will add a support person. But at the time, we didn't want to, support person can be anything, anyone. It can be the mother of the birthing person, it can be the mother-in-law, or like I have been as a doula where the mother-in-law was there, which can be kind of sound weird, but it worked well. It can be your friend, it can be your spouse, but it's not always the spouse or the father of the child. So we didn't want to do preconceptions about who the support person is. So that's why we left it out, but there was a strong desire to get that back. For this, we used Panel 2 VR program to compile the program because it was easy to put on a website and multi-device use. But now we are planning on doing it in Unity and we have a lot of ideas over what we could do. But this was the first pilot that we compiled and then what we user tested. And we wanted, since nowadays short videos are the thing, they're not going to watch video that is over 5 minutes. So we try to keep it as short as possible. So we changed some of the discussion into annotation because we could shrink the length of the videos. Then the user studies. So we had studies first with parents who had given birth but not pregnant at the time, because we wanted to make sure that it's not increasing fear or so there is no adverse events. And when that went okay, then we went to, we had a study with expecting parents. And then we also wanted to get the midwife's view. And they also started like brainstorming that, okay, this could be good for midwifery teaching as well. For midwives, before they go into their first birth, they would have an image of what it could be. Because most of us have seen only the births in the movies where there is like, it's always emergency, screaming, like you're very busy and a lot of things going on. But actually birth is waiting, going from contraction to contraction for hours. So a lot of people have wrong image of birth. So that has also been like one of the good outcomes here, that people are like, oh, it's a lot of waiting. So also for the support person to realize that, okay, it's not emergency all the time, like 24 hours of emergency, that's exhausting. So from the user testing, we had some qualitative data, but we have very small user group. But the usability of the program was good. But the interesting part was that it was better for VR than the other devices. And then like, due to the software limitation, we had more content on the other devices, and only the 360 videos were visible on the VR. So people were kind of browsing around in VR less than what they had in the other devices, but it ended up being too much. So we should actually find the medium, like what information is relevant for them, how much information is enough and not too much. So I think that was the main reason why the usability result went down for the other devices. And interesting was that we asked about the 360 videos, if they bring added value, and the score was 4.6 over 5, so it really brought added value. But when we asked if the VR brings added value, it dropped to 3.6. So people did prefer the other means, and one reason is that they didn't have the VR headset at home, and they were not accustomed to using it, I think. We need more studies on this. But they were using the mobile app when they were commuting, or they were waiting for their other children in a soccer field, and they were able to use it. And with the functionality, you could kind of look around with the mobile phone as well. And the computer was liked because they could use it, they could share the experience with their support person. So it was fun for them to kind of look at it and talk about how the support person could kind of do the things that the midwife is doing in the videos. So those were most of the reasons why the VR was not the #1 for them. But I think this could change when people start having their VR headsets at home, they are accustomed using them. So that we will see in the future. One thing that we noticed in the first user testing with the parents who were not pregnant is that we didn't think of this placement before, but we placed like, okay, if it's a birthing pole video, we put it on the birthing pole, the content. If it was electronic fetal monitoring, we put it on the device. If it was like the TENS unit, we do use TENS, which is good. If you get a nicer TENS unit, I'm interested. Like without the cords, you could just slap it on your back. So it would be great. So then when they were using the content, in Finland, we read from left to right. So people started using the content from the left and they progressed to the right. But that meant that the progression of labor, like the videos were not according to the progression of labor. So they were like beginning of labor, then you had like more advanced labor, then you had again from the beginning of the labor. So it was kind of mixed. And for the second version, we lined up. So you can see the second picture has a line. They are not placed where the content is filmed, but now you could go from beginning of labor until the end. And that was really liked. It was like really changing the user experience. A small thing like that it really made a big difference. Then also the users wanted to be seated. When you are really immersed in the scene, you lose kind of control where you're standing, and they started kind of moving around. So then I made them sit later on, and nobody said anything about that issue anymore. And I prefer a chair that doesn't have wheels on it, because then they easily went from the area they should be at. And but then they could kind of turn around if it's a spinning chair. Like the first picture is actually from the midwife using it. It has a chair that is turning. The second one is the one that, okay, she was standing first, and then we just needed to find a chair for her to sit because she wanted to. Then one thing was that a few times in the video, the actor came too close to the camera, and that was something that they really said that was uncomfortable. That next time we really need to see that there is distance between the camera and the actors. And our virtual world was slightly bigger, and the floor was slightly higher than the natural world. And that also was commented a lot, that it wasn't the actual representation of the size of the world. Small things, but a big difference. I covered the content. So the other one that we did was flipped learning. So that is when they study the online material on their own, and then we had Zoom meetings where we discussed the topic. They were able to ask questions, so they always have the contact with me. And I want to highlight that I really don't want the VR to replace any of the contacts the people currently have. But the fact is that they don't have the contact with the professionals at the moment. So online learning could be used so that, especially like childbirth education, it's ongoing, and people are in different stages of pregnancy. So I see that people come there early in the pregnancy. They are looking around, listening to other questions, learning from the peers. Then they go to the online learning, and they are more tuned to learning the things. Then they come to the meetings with their own questions. So I like to have like different levels of pregnancies in the online learning sessions, because like if you're close to the due date, you're really thinking like, this is me, I need to learn these things. And then the people who are just coming to the childbirth education, they learn from the questions and the discussion that's going on. But the main thing is that always connect the professional and the student and not to leave them alone. As a summary, I want, the virtual reality really worked for childbirth education. It immersed them to the birth. They really got the emotional contact with the education. So when you're in labor and your thinking brain goes to sleep, should be, then you still have some knowledge to do. You remember the movements, you know that they were upright or sitting on a ball. So you can apply the content to your own birth much better than from a PowerPoint. And the flipped learning kind of introduced the professional contact and peer support to the online childbirth education as well. We did find some usability issues that need further considerations and further research. And then this work produced an instructional model for flipped learning for the case when it's adult learning and not higher education. Like all the models were about higher education, where you're getting a diploma, you have tests, but adult learning is totally different. Like the time you use is totally different, the motivation is different. So hopefully that will help some people to develop adult education even further. There are some of the publications that are part of my PhD. And now I'm new to the virtual world. My background is in engineering, usability, e-learning. So I would like to network with people and also like where to take this, my PhD product, the virtual reality childbirth education after this. So this is the pilot. We have plenty of ideas how to improve it. But how will I do it? I still don't know. So any ideas are welcome.
It's a great presentation, Marjaana. I think this would be an interesting use case, is using the Sidekick AI that they introduced and creating a companion application that the parents can use at any time, just learning, asking a question for anything, and before and after, what have you.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Question about the usability and the kind of before and after with the placement of interaction points within VR, where you said it was kind of less sequential. On the left side you had that, and the trigger points were all throughout, and then in the refined version it was more sequential. Was it also the placement within the field of view for the users with usability, and do you find that, does that lessen immersion or anything if they aren't looking around and it is in that kind of right in their side of vision?
Most of the content still stayed in the same area, so they did need to change their view. There were only the birth pool was kind of more on the back, but even though when we reorganized, the view was pretty much the same where the location was. So that actually good point, because that didn't change even though we lined up. There is a video I wanted to put on the background, but oh no. No.
You had talked about using this both as education, but then also as almost like a practice ground for people to see what going through birth is like. My question was, how important do you think it is that the virtual environment that they're in reflects the environment that they're going to be birthing in? So in other words, if you guys were to remodel all of your rooms and now they're a completely different color, everything, is, different, do you think that would make any difference from their virtual experience into when they're actually delivering?
I think it will be a big part. So I have been thinking about if we can take 360 photos of each birthing room and then customize the program to each hospital. So maybe not how to get to the hospital, that needs to be done separately, but I think most of the content that happens in the birthing room, we could actually produce such that we could change the surrounding. We were actually talking about it today when we were walking here, that how to actually do that. And I think that's a big part, because then you can imagine yourself in the room while doing the childbirth education and then go into the room. So yeah, really important.
It was a really wonderful presentation, thank you. But I am intrigued, in your opening comments, you talked about the difference between birthing in Finland and birthing in the United States. Would you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about that?
Interesting. They are totally different systems. Yeah, I can say that, better not. There are good things in both. We can do it offline.
This is so fantastic, and I've had the good fortune of giving birth 3 times, and one was in, the first one was in Iceland, in a hospital, but they had a special wing for people that wanted to have more of this home birth feeling. So the room was decorated with curtains, little, it had music, so it felt like I was in an Airbnb or something, like that. It felt at the time it wasn't Airbnb, it was called a bed and breakfast. So then we had, and then I had a birth in at home birth, and then I had a birth in an American hospital. So I can reflect with you, 3, maybe we can have a little powwow together to talk about the differences, because there is definitely some striking differences. But I was actually, so I'm a meditation teacher and I work at a yoga studio, and the most popular course is the birthing course. And we have couples crowded in the room, and they're number of times a week they're doing the prenatal yoga, but it's couples and it's men and women, and they're learning how, all these wonderful, it's also psychology involved, right? How to support your partner, all these things. I think this could be really juicy. So maybe you can come to Iceland.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Marjaana, I was curious to know whether the teaching that you're doing or the education that you're providing goes a little bit beyond right after birth, and what mothers in particular can expect to feel, because it can be very emotional and disturbing, and I don't know that many mothers are really prepared for the kind of emotional turmoil, I guess, that they are confronted with in the hours and first early days after.
We have a plan to expand the content. Now it starts from when you're transferred to the hospital. So we want to have the home part, because most people are more comfortable giving birth, laboring at home for a long period of time. And that's what the hospitals want also. But also the postpartum period, the first hour, the first week, and later, that's really important. And we have a plan to add the content there as well.
And I have a quick question. As an American in the anesthesia world of all of this, I absolutely love the focus on the more natural birthing. Do you include, or are you considering including more of the support person's role a lot of our fathers in America tend to sit in the chair and watch the football, basketball, whatever game is on, and kind of leave the nurse and the spouse off to the side to wither in pain. And then have you thought about including any of the, I guess, more American traditions of epidurals, or helping them to understand, should they need to go into an emergency C-section, how to kind of calm those fears?
Yeah, we have all that postpartum and the medical pain relief in the online course already. So pretty much we can incorporate that as well. And that's why especially the midwives wanted to have the support person there and not the midwife, because now the midwife is pressing the back or something, but they want to have the image that the support person is actually the one doing it for hours, and kind of give them the idea that this is your job and usually the support person really enjoys getting the information and know what to do, because they're usually quite helpless, and then they kind of withdraw themselves from the situation because they feel helpless and nobody really teaches them. And men has been the biggest advocate of the online course as well, and this VR, when they get the VR headset and they take it, they are sold. And so yeah, I want to add the support person there as well.
So as a father of 5, and I use the term being in the splash zone of the part. I've seen 5 different times of different operations and different procedures. It's mesmerizing. So you are focused on fathers who might be more involved, not watching the game.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is fascinating. I love it. And I think all these comments make me think it's almost like what would be really amazing is a package, a suite, right? Pre, during, prep and post. We were just talking about how how many women give up on breastfeeding because it's so difficult and you don't have anybody to coach you through it. I mean, I don't know if there's augmented reality or something to help with that. Those are type of things carrying through the whole process. And honestly, it's a way to bring in some of the apps that already exist that people have here, like what Tristan's talking about with Flow. You have the meditation piece and it's combined. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept to kind of have that the immersive childbirth experience as a sweet package of all these things. So it's something I thought was interesting. So
yeah, and there is some work done on breastfeeding in VR, which is great.
Thank you so much. 2 thoughts with it. I think if there was a way, as Mike had just mentioned, a package. I know in our state, maternal health is a huge issue, and especially the mortality rates were starting to plummet. And so they were looking at how do we change those dynamics, midwifery, doulas, being much more inclusive in all those parts. I do worry about the divide. So who is able to afford to have one of these? Who has the insurance coverage that's going to get it here in the U.S.? And are we leaving underserved populations that don't have access to this? So any sort of development needs to have some sort of equity tied to it, where you can actually either loan that device out or let them go with it. And then the other part is follow up and see if you can get some data collection on postpartum depression. And can you embed the scaling into that package so when they go home with it, there's early warning flags that either trigger back to the clinic or to the midwife or someone, say, hey, we're noticing patterns that have changed in the use of this thing, or maybe when they engage with it, the first question is, how are you feeling today? And that's the first sort of signal that you can get every day when they turn it on.
That would be my dream, definitely, to have it all combined and to have the providers part of this, that this is part of their service, and they have the connection with the professional, and they can ask questions, they can discuss, they can see the signs. And yeah, they see so few times nowadays, the provider, so the provider doesn't really know you and doesn't really see if you have postpartum depression like before. So yeah, there are bigger issues over there that we could be part of. And before I was talking to Laura that we need a platform to distribute all these pieces like the breastfeeding and my childbirth education and all these and put them together and the tracking and everything, like everybody owns one piece of it, but how do we make it, how do we compile it, and then how do we have it at the hospital that they could offer it for their patients?
Great talk. I watched several parts of this and I thought it was very objective and precise, which I very much appreciated. I thought it was a great presentation. I've been part of thousands of deliveries. I'm an anesthesiologist, and many times the thing that keeps me up at night is labor and delivery. Despite all of that, I would say the most favorite part of my clinical life by far is watching and being part of babies born to good parents. On the sort of opposite side of that, the absolute least favorite part of my job is watching babies be born to bad parents. And I'm oversimplifying, but I think that there's a real opportunity to the previous point that was made, to really assist some folks that could use whatever assistance they can get during the brief time that we have to interact with them during the childbirthing experience. And I think it's really great work that you're doing. And to your previous point that you just made, we should chat a little bit later. I'd love to help you with that.
Okay, great. Looking forward to that. And like the continuation, what in the first study, when I kind of tried to figure out what is the problem, the midwives raised the issue that if a person is prepared for birth, they feel better after birth and they are more prepared for it, even though it hasn't been specifically postpartum training, but they tune into their intuition better. And we also have a problem that some people, they have read 10 books and they know how it's done, but they don't really get it and they are not tuned into the baby. They just know that, like, now I have to do this and that, but not, like, intuitive parenting is kind of lost somewhere.
Marjaana, thank you.
Thank you.